Hi, it's me again with Corel Draw Tips and Tricks, and I had to reproduce this for one of my nephews or grandnephews that I did this 3 years ago, and then he was born last year, and his grandmother asked to make another one, and this is one of the easiest ones you could probably make. So what we're going to do, I'm not actually going to use Ford, but I'm going to actually use the Ford name, and I'm going to use a font called WW Flakes that you can get from DA Fonts. And if a little word of insight, if you type out a few letters and then Control D and make a duplicate, go up to text and change that line to uppercase, you're going to get a totally different set of snowflakes. The small caps versus the large caps. And then you would just look for a font, it is a font. Look for a snowflake that has, is going to be virtually pretty strong. Like this one will work, that one would work, that one would work. So we're going to Control K and break them apart. And then we're going to grab that font or that snowflake, and this is kind of the same. You want something that's going to be filled in when you left click, right click it. And it's going to be virtually pretty strong. And you really just need two. So we're going to take those two, left click, right click, and we're going to also convert them to curves so they're no longer fonts. So let's just get rid of these, but just remember that font. And then draw you like however big you're going to make it. Let's make it 3.75. 3.75. And then bring in your font, kind of get an idea of what it's going to look like. And you want it, tell you what we're going to do. We're going to draw in the center of the page. We're going to take our circle and hit P on the keyboard. I'm going to group this together for a second because there's two pieces to it. And we're going to have to break them apart in just a second. But we want it about that size, maybe a little bit bigger. So we're going to, holding down the shift button so it'll grow from the outside. Then we're going to break it apart. And if you there's a little thing, if you grab that, you grab them both. If you grab just the word, you grab just the word. We're going to go to Object and ungroup it. Then we can use the boundary tool. We're going to hit the boundary tool. First of all, let's see what our nudge distance is. Let's set our nudge distance on 4 inches. And we're going to grab the font and we're going to make a boundary and we're going to move the boundary out of the way. Then we're going to go to Effects and Contour, and we're going to contour, I'm going to contour 0.05 just to give it a little bit of contour. I'm going to go to Object and break the contour apart. I'm going to grab the outside contour and nudge it right back. That's really not big enough, but we can enlarge both of them at this time. If you hold down your shift button, it'll grow from both sides. And that's pretty good. We'll take this away, we don't need it anymore. Then we're going to write, let's make it 2020 if you're doing it for this year. And then pick a font you like. I like Comic Sans. Sometimes it doesn't do it. You have to click on when you have the pick tool. You want it quite a bit smaller. And we're going to left click, right click, and we're going to convert it to a curve because the text just won't weld very good. And now we're going to break it apart with Control K. Use the boundary tool for that and nudge it out of the way. We'll contour it the same amount, maybe a little bit more because it's going to be small. So we'll go 0.1. Go up to Object, break contour apart, grab the other one and move it back. But before we do that, let's make this a font. We'll color it in and then make sure it's because I did it as a curve. And you can very easily take that and then nudge it up, nudge it up, nudge it up, nudge it up. And you just want to make sure that you don't have any. And then what we can do is nudge this up too and have them together. Now we can grab that and kind of place it in our ornament. You don't really want it in the center. One thing you want to be careful of, you do not want to have hairlines in that engraving. So let's grab well, let's move it all over. So you've got it needs to be touching in a couple spots. So when we weld it, that looks pretty good. So now we're going to nudge that out of the way. And because we've broken these apart, we're going to Control G, and we'll nudge them out of the way. Nudge that up. And at this point, you could use the weld tool. But by the time you figure out, and we're going to nudge the name up, whoop, nudge that down and nudge the name up, put this back. And this is definitely, you could use the weld tool, and we'll try it first. A lot of times when you have a lot of items, it just doesn't work correct like that. And you could do front minus back, back minus front, and it did work. We've got a line here, an inside contour that we do not need. So we're going to go to Object and break the curve apart and try to grab that thing and take it away. And then just personal preference, whether you want that little cutout or not. Doesn't really need it. That part maybe is going to help a little bit. But then all you do is you move your names back down. But before we do that, we're going to add some snowflakes. So if you remember the two snowflakes we made that are a text, we'll put one with the text I picked, or where I put it. There's really not much room, but any little bit will help. And you really want it kind of like that. Now we can try back minus front and see what happens. And but by the time you figure it out, let's just try to weld it. By the time you do all that, you could have used the virtual segment delete key and saved you a lot of trouble. So we'll just delete all this excess. Well, I need to keep that. What you want to do is have color down in the smart field, or in the name itself, or in the, I can't talk this morning. But you want it, what you're doing, you're wanting way for the smart field tool to get down in there to make it all kind of congeal together. And if you ever see anything you thought, well, I wish I would have made the snowflake hit this up here, you can grab your shape tool just to make it a little bit stronger, and just grab those nodes and just move them up, and then get back to your virtual segment delete key. And it made it a little bit stronger on that aspect. And then just do the same thing for two more snowflakes up top. We can make these a little bit bigger. Let's Control D and use a duplicate key, and this is personal preference, you know, the way you like things and how you want it to look. But we'll zoom in and do the same thing with the virtual segment delete key. All you're trying to do is have it a way for the wood is going to stay together. And you're just creating, you just need to kind of think about, and let's zoom in here a little bit. You know, those two pieces need to, now, in just a second, I'll show you something. See how these are not very good nodes? They're not connected. Well, we're gonna, enough people that watch my videos know that I use the Smart Fill tool, and that's why I do. It's gonna clean up stuff like that. And this takes just a second. One more cleanup, and then it's just whatever you think needs to be done here. I would just delete that line right there. Now, if we knew that the other circle was 3.75, so we're gonna hold down the control button and we're gonna make a 4-inch circle. And then hit P, put it in the center of the page. And that's advantage to put it in the center of the page. We're basically done. But I'm gonna use the Smart Fill tool and then nudge that out of the way. And I'm gonna left click, no fill, right click outline. So now it's all one piece. Where before, I still had the Smart Fill tool, this is different pieces, where this is all one piece. Now, hit P, put it in the center of the page. I got lucky there. And then let's nudge that up and engrave the forward part, or the name, and the 2020. We do need to put a little eyelet for that. So we're gonna take just the outside circle. Well, let's go to Object and break curve apart. That does not change anything on the inside. Get you a pretty good size hole. This is 0.65. Let's zoom in a little bit. Try to put it top dead center on that node. Take your virtual segment delete key and delete those two lines. Take you a smaller hole, like 1/4 of an inch, 0.25. And this is just going to be to hanging on a tree. And you can pretty much eyeball that. Then what I do, I'd use the Smart Fill tool again to do the same thing, and that creates that solid piece. And then nudge that over, get rid of everything else on your page, and there's you an ornament for a young child that'll look pretty cool and really pretty easy. I hope that helped a little bit, and thank you for watching.